Barron's hands trembled under the desk, barely visible to the cameras, but his eyes, once calm, held a storm nobody on that stage was prepared for. Jasmine Crockett's voice had just finished slicing through the air, leaving behind a silence so brutal, even the floor director froze. Then it happened. Barron leaned forward as if to respond, but his breath caught, his body swayed, and in a split second, he collapsed onto the studio floor, gasping as if the weight of years had finally crushed him. If you are still watching and feeling what he felt, then do not forget to subscribe. This story is just getting started. The moderator shouted for help. Someone screamed from the production booth, and the screen went black for 3 whole seconds. America, in that very moment, witnessed the collapse not just of a young man, but of a truth that had been buried for too long. When the feed returned, the camera had shifted. There was no official statement, no apology, just a shadow of Barron Trump being carried out, lifeless in expression, as Jasmine sat frozen in her chair, eyes wide but lips firm. But the real collapse, what caused it, did not begin on that stage. It began 13 days earlier in a quiet room on the 2nd floor of a brownstone in D.C., where Barron had received a package, no return address, no markings, just a plain manila envelope, and inside it, a photograph. The moment he saw it, something in him cracked. He did not speak to anyone about it, not his mother, not his security detail, and certainly not the media team that hovered around him like shadows. That photograph held something tied to the Crockett family, something Jasmine had held back for years. But what made her reveal it now? Why wait until this specific interview broadcasted nationwide, with millions watching and every major political figure silently tuning in? It was not just politics. It was personal. And it was explosive. Days before the show, Jasmine had hinted off the record that she would be mentioning history that never made it into the books. The producers brushed it off as her usual bravado. But Barron's private team begged. T.O. cancel. He insisted he would go. Maybe he thought she would not go there. Maybe he underestimated the pain she carried. Maybe he believed silence still worked in his world. But silence had already betrayed him. Just moments before the collapse, Jasmine leaned into her mic, looked him dead in the eye, and asked a single question that was never on the script. "Barron, do you want me to show them the photograph your mother tried to burn?" That was it. No context, no follow-up. Just that one sentence, and suddenly he could not breathe. The viewers did not need the image. They only needed her tone. Calm, unshaken, loaded with something heavier than revenge. The photograph, as we will soon learn, was only the beginning. Barron had not spoken since that moment. His team had cleared the press, silenced the cameras, and escorted him to a private medical facility just outside of Arlington. But the silence inside him was louder than the headlines screaming across every screen in America. He lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as if he was still trying to rewrite what had happened. But deep down, he knew there was no erasing this one. Because this was not a political ambush. This was personal. And Jasmine knew exactly where to strike. That photograph. It haunted him. Not because of what it showed, but because of what it meant. It was a single moment, frozen in time, a child standing in front of a locked door, tears on his face, and a woman's shadow behind the curtains. That woman was not Melania. And that door? That was the basement of the Trump estate in Westchester. The place he was never allowed to enter. Ever. Until the day he broke the rule. And everything changed. At just 9 years old, Barron had heard whispers from the staff. About voices. About someone who used to live downstairs. He had asked questions, and every time, his mother's eyes would darken. "That part of the house is not for you," she once said coldly. "Some places must stay shut." But children rarely obey silence. And one evening, when the hallway was empty and the security system was down for a scheduled update, Barron used his father's old code. The door opened. He remembered the smell, first damp, sharp, like something left behind. And then the walls, covered in drawings. Not just childish scribbles, but messages, names, please. Barron's name was on one of them, in red crayon. And next to it, another name he had never heard before. But now, years later, Jasmine had spoken that same name aloud on national television. How did she know? That was the part eating away at him now. Because whoever took that photo, whoever had been in that hallway, watching him, was not supposed to exist. And if Jasmine had it, then she knew the truth. Or worse, she knew someone who did. Back in the studio, just minutes before the live show had aired, Barron had walked past Jasmine in the hallway. She looked at him, not with hate, but with certainty, as if she had already accepted what was about to happen. And that shook him, because Barron had lived his whole life controlling the narrative. Now it was slipping away, one piece at a time. She had not even shown the photograph yet. Just the question, just the suggestion of what it could reveal. But Barron knew the impact, because the truth was not about what was seen. It was about what was hidden for so long. And as he lay there in the stillness of that recovery room, the silence was finally broken by the buzz of his phone. One message, no name, just a number he had not seen in over a decade. The message read, "She does not know everything, but I do." He sat up slowly. His hands shook again. The collapse was not the end. It was only the trigger. Barron stared at the message as if it were breathing. His chest tightened, but this time it was not from fear, it was from recognition. That number, that cold, familiar pattern of digits. He had seen it before, hidden inside an old phone his mother once threw into the fireplace, but failed to destroy completely. That number belonged to someone his entire family had sworn never to mention again. It belonged to his half-sister. She was never acknowledged publicly. No press coverage, no photographs. Just fragments of her existence tucked away behind thick walls and non-disclosure agreements. Barron had only heard her name once, during a late-night argument between his parents that they assumed he had slept through. But he remembered every word. She was never supposed to be born. You cannot erase her. She is not part of this legacy. He did not understand it back then. But now, Jasmine Crockett's question and that single photograph made everything snap into place. His collapse was not just the weight of public shame. It was the moment all the lies began untangling. Slowly, sharply, publicly. The phone buzzed again. "They think I am gone. You know I am not, and you know why Jasmine did this." That second message hit harder. He did know. Or at least he was beginning to. Jasmine Crockett had never cared much for headlines. She had always spoken with a kind of quiet fury that felt like she was trying to protect something or someone. And now it made sense. Because once, long ago, his half-sister had told him through the crack of a basement door, "One day, she will speak for me." Jasmine was not just exposing him. She was fulfilling a promise. But why now? Why live in silence all these years, and then choose a live broadcast as the battleground? There had to be more. Something deeper. Something buried not in the past, but in the present. He opened the message thread again, and for the first time, typed something back. "What did I do?" The typing bubble appeared instantly. "You forgot me." That was enough. The pain of that sentence hit harder than anything Jasmine had said, because forgetting was not intentional, it was survival. After that night in the basement, his mother had sent him away for 3 months, an extended study retreat, at a private estate in Switzerland. No electronics, no questions, just tutors and silence. And when he came back, the room downstairs had been remodeled. The door no longer existed, at least, not to the world. But someone had kept records. Someone had kept memories. And someone, now Jasmine, had brought them to the surface. Barron now knew that this was never just about politics, or family reputation, or television drama. It was about an erased life coming back into the light. And he was the one who unknowingly helped bury it. But if Jasmine had only shown the photograph, what else did she still have? Another buzz. Check the flash drive in your father's safe, behind the second panel. Do it before they do. Barron stood up. For the first time in hours, he felt something stronger than fear. He felt a truth begging to be found, and the moment he opened that safe, everything would change again. The safe had always been there, nestled behind the portrait of George Washington in his father's old study. Barron had passed it 1,000 times without ever thinking it mattered. But now, as his fingers hesitated over the cold metal dial, he realized that it might be the only place left untouched by the storm outside. He entered the code with a trembling hand, the same birth date he had memorized, when he was 12, and the mechanism clicked open like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Inside were a few familiar items, an old journal, a sealed envelope, labeled Private Eyes Only, and at the very back, just as the message had said, a loose wooden panel. He pried it back gently. Behind it, in the hollowed space, lay a single black flash drive wrapped in red cloth. No label, no markings. Just weight. Emotional weight. He stared at it for a long second, unsure if opening it would bring him clarity or destroy whatever image of his family still remained. But the curiosity had already outgrown the fear. Barron plugged it into his laptop and the screen lit up with a single video file. He clicked play. A shaky handheld recording appeared. The timestamp read 7 years ago. The camera was hidden, barely peeking through a crack in what looked like a door. Inside, a woman's voice, frustrated, emotional, unmistakably Millennian, spoke in sharp whispers. She cannot stay here anymore. If the media finds out, another voice interrupted. Donald's. She is not going anywhere. Not until the election is over. She is your daughter. She is a problem. That is what she is. Barron leaned back, his stomach knotting. This was it. Confirmation. The secret they had locked away in basements in silence. The sister. The child born out of scandal. Hidden from the world, not because she had done something wrong, but because her very existence threatened the clean, cold narrative his family built around legacy and power. Then, the camera shifted slightly. A young girl barely older than 8 sat silently on a cot. Her hands clutched a crumpled drawing, and her eyes stared straight ahead. It was her, the girl from the photograph. The one Jasmine had mentioned. And suddenly, every piece fit together. Like a cruel puzzle, Jasmine had known her, protected her, maybe even raised her in secret, and now Jasmine had chosen to burn the illusion on live television. But why involve Barron? Why drag him into it after all these years? His hands clenched as the video faded to black and a second file loaded on screen, this time audio only. Jasmine's voice echoed through his headphones. If you are listening to this, Barron, then I have already done what your family feared. You need to know something. She asked me not to blame you. She thought you were too young to understand. But now you are not. Now you have a choice. Protect the legacy, or protect the truth. Barron pulled the headphones off, his chest rising fast. Everything was different now. His family was not just complicated, it was cruel. His silence had helped bury a living truth, and Jasmine's broadcast had only peeled back the first layer. And now, the choice was his. He could deny, pretend, collapse again, or he could speak. But before he could even close the laptop, his phone rang. Unknown number. Again. He answered. You took the drive, a man's voice said coldly. You should not have done that. Then the line went dead. Barron sat motionless, the disconnected line still echoing in his ears. The voice on the phone was not familiar, but the tone was controlled, powerful, and used to being obeyed. It was not a warning, it was a command. And it meant someone else knew. someone who had been watching all along. He closed the laptop gently, locking eyes with his own reflection in the darkened screen. He no longer looked like the boy America thought they knew. Not the clean-shaven, quiet son of a former president, but a young man who had just uncovered a betrayal that ran deeper than he had ever imagined. His next move had to be careful. One wrong step, and this would not be about truth or family anymore, it would be survival. He grabbed his coat, the flash drive, and left the safe open on purpose. If someone came looking for it, they would know. It was already too late. But as he stepped outside into the black car waiting by the curb, a memory returned like a blade through the chest. He was 12. It was Christmas Eve. Snow had blanketed the Westchester property. Everyone was gone, his parents at a gala, the staff dismissed early, and he had wandered into the forbidden wing of the house. That was when he saw her again, the same girl from the basement. She had come up, just once, dressed in a blue sweater far too large for her frame. She said only one thing to him before disappearing behind the back stairs. "One day, I will be louder than all of them." He thought she had vanished. But now, her voice was screaming across his memory. Jasmine had given him the truth. His half-sister had given him the warning. And whoever was behind that call had just confirmed something darker. There were more secrets still buried, and those who buried them would not let the past surface without a fight. The car took him to a quiet address outside Georgetown, to someone Jasmine had once mentioned in passing, an investigative journalist named Emery Nash. She had vanished from mainstream media years ago after publishing a story about child witnesses in political families and the silent systems built to control them. Jasmine had once called her the last journalist who still writes with a conscience. Barron knocked 3 times. A camera clicked above the door. A long pause, then it creaked open slightly. Emery stood there, gray hair tied back, eyes tired but sharp. She did not ask who he was, she only stepped aside. He handed her the flash. "Drive." She did not even blink. "So it is real," she whispered. "Jasmine said you might come." Barron's voice cracked as he spoke. "She had a sister. My sister. My family locked her away." Emery nodded slowly. "They locked away more than just her. That basement is just one chapter." She reached under the table and pulled out a faded file. On the cover, "Project Silence, internal clearance only." Inside were documents, contracts, photos, signatures. Things even Barron had never seen. He was not the only forgotten child. His sister was not the only shadow. This was a pattern, a machine, a legacy of secrets. And Barron Trump was the first one brave enough to open the door. But before he could read more, Emery's phone buzzed. A single text. They found him. Barron's heart pounded as Emery's face changed. She read the message again, slower this time, as if trying to make sense of the impossible. She turned the phone toward him. The message was short, 5 words that shattered the room. They found him, the brother. Barron stood frozen. "Brother? What are you talking about?" "There was never a—" Emery raised her hand, her voice calm but urgent. "There was. You just never knew." She opened a second file, one she had never shown anyone. Inside was a black and white photo of a hospital crib from nearly 20 years ago. A tag on the bed read, "BT Confidential Ward." Beside it, handwritten notes, no names, no birth certificate. Only a number. And one word, circled over and over again in red ink, "Duplicate." Barron shook his head. "This cannot be real. I do not have a brother." Emery looked at him. "Not anymore. But you did. And he was taken before you ever knew he existed." The room was spinning. The secrets were no longer just about a hidden sister or a buried truth. They were about something deeper, darker, an entire piece of his identity erased before he'd even opened his eyes to the world. He staggered back, his thoughts scrambling for answers. "What happened to him?" Emery's voice dropped. "They hid him. Experimented. You were the public child. He was the contingency. A backup plan if things fell apart. But when he started asking questions, he disappeared. A wave of silence fell over the room, the kind that carries grief and rage in equal measure. Barron sat down slowly, as if his body could no longer carry the weight of his name. So everything they told, the family vacations, the speeches, the smiles, were a mask, Emery finished. You were the image, not the truth. The flash drive Jasmine had given him was only the start. It had revealed one locked door. But now, with Emery's documents and the files in front of him, Barron realized something horrifying. There were more children, more silences, more shadows behind his family's polished frame. His phone buzzed again. This time, a photo. Blurry, grainy, but unmistakable. A man, maybe early 20s, standing outside a train station in Prague. The caption read, "I am not dead. I am just waiting." Barron's hands began to shake again, but he did not collapse. He clenched them into fists. For the first time, the fear turned into fire. Everything Jasmine had done, everything she risked, was to force this truth into the light. She had not destroyed him. She had freed him. He stood up and looked at Emery. "I need to speak. I need to tell the world everything." Emery hesitated. "Once you do this, there is no going back." Barron's voice was steady now. "There is nothing left to go back to." He walked toward the window, the night sky stretching above Washington like a curtain about to rise. He could no longer carry his family's lies. The legacy they built was burning, and he was holding the match. And somewhere, across the ocean, a brother waited. The collapse was never the end. It was the beginning of the reckoning.